God I beg, make I not die for Bodija. So yeah, I moved to Ibadan like 5 years ago, 2020, as COVID-19 was wrapping up or whatsoever. And that's because the company where I was working at the time decided to go fully remote. And because I could not afford the rent in Lagos, Ibadan made the next logical sense because I expected the rent to be cheaper and cost of living to be favorable overall. And also the proximity to Lagos means that if there was an event or if I had anything to do in Lagos, I can easily pop in and pop out. Right. The very first house that I lived in Ibadan cost about 300K, and three of my friends, we took the apartment together. So we basically split that rent, but it came with a lot of troubles. So the first thing we had to battle when we moved in was rats. So we had to try like get cement and start like blocking all the holes just to prevent rats from feasting or eating with us in the house. Then came the time when rain came and rain was like try like dropping everywhere. It was literally unlivable. And that made sense why the house rent was 300K or whatever the price was back then. And I think one of the intriguing things to me, which revealed to me that Ibadan may be a city where there is not a lot of standards, is when we took that house, the house was undergoing renovation. And I remember like one of the key people working on the renovation was like, this work is too much. Oh, like the people moving in not even to do something when they moving. Basically, it was in Yoruba, it was like, shout to the coalition and it was just like, yo, like the person who owns the house decides to renovate the house and give it out to people to come and stay in. Like, what exactly is your own problem? And being concerned that the people who are going to move in will not be doing anything in your house. Fast forward, after a year, I moved out of that house and I moved to like another apartment that was not so far. And also another thing about this 300K house was the fact that there was nothing such as doorstep delivery. What we had basically was junction delivery. And that junction was like 10 minutes walk. So you cannot be on a call and say, yeah, I want to go and pick something downstairs. Go and pick something downstairs, okay? Like you have to like walk 10 minutes to like a junction, pick it up and come back. And that's like the way delivery works. So yeah. So for me, one of the criteria for me if I was ever going to get a house was that the house needed to be like by the roadside so that you can do doorstep delivery, so that I will not be arguing with like delivery drivers in Ibadan. Right. So I got another house not so far from where we were staying, and it was about 400K. But the interesting thing is like the first night that I moved into the house, I could literally not sleep overnight. And that's because my neighbors were running their generating set overnight. Now, for context, I grew up in Oshobo, very peaceful town. I schooled in Akure, very peaceful town as well. And then I served in Abia State, very peaceful town as well. Right. I'm not used to noise. Right. I literally could not sleep because they were running their generating sets. Right. And I think that's probably one of the most depressing moments of my life for the 2 years that I spent in the house. Right. Because what I discovered is that my sleep was not very deep because my neighbors were running generation sets. I know this is like the standard way of living in a place like Lagos, but I just don't know how people do it, right? As what I discovered was I was not having a lot of sleep. And when I went out to say visit friends or yes, go visit friends and sleep at the house, I discovered that I feel very refreshed when I wake up in the morning. And that's just because there is no subconscious sound that was like ringing in my head. Another problem with the house was the fact that it was a house with like a lot of apartments, right? And we had just two small GP tanks that were supposed to serve the entire house. Now, for context, electricity was not so constant in that area, and there's no way you're going to get water if there is no electricity. So yeah, so I had to battle water a lot. A lot of times I'll even go and fetch water and all of those things. And sometimes I'll be like, senior front end engineer going to fetch water. Isn't this very interesting? You know, go fetch water, okay, bro, it's day bado, right? So yeah, I had like a lot of water problems at the time and all of that. Right then, after the first year, I wanted to move out, but yeah, getting a suitable apartment was like very difficult to get. Then, the second year, I was much more determined to move out, so I started my job hunting. I said job hunting, my house hunting, like a little earlier, like 3 months before like my rent expired. Then I got the house like eventually, like in Bodija, which is where I currently live, which is where I'm making this video from. Now, while I've told you my housing stories, I think the most interesting thing for me is that sometimes you get to a point in your career or you get to a point in your life where it seems like everything you've prayed for, everything you've wished for has kind of come your way, right? And you then begin to lose the steam or the energy to keep forging ahead, right? I think I've been having that feeling for about a year now, or probably two, right? You see your mates, probably like in the same level or in the same criteria, probably like in another country, seemingly moving forward, right? While you seem to be living a relatively comfortable life in Nigeria, it just appears like the whole world is moving fast and you're being left behind, right? And sometimes I'm like, okay, yeah, life is good. I don't have to ask for much and all of that, right? But sometimes it can actually get to you, right? But whatsoever the situation may be, what I believe is that if you've been able to make a bunch of decisions that led you up to this point in your career, whether good decisions or bad decisions, right? It means that you can trust yourself to make other decisions that will lead you to like the next stage of your life, right? I didn't quite plan to make this a motivational speech. I just wanted to share my thoughts and God, I beg. Like I know die, but Bodija.